Good morning, everyone. I'm Angela LoBue, and I'm the Senior Program Officer for the Foster Youth Initiative at the Hilton Foundation. When Rochelle invited me to share a few reflections of what we're seeing as both a national foundation and a foundation that specifically focuses on certain geographies. You all know that we support work in Los Angeles, but we're also working in New York City and Atlanta, and as well as supporting some national work, of course. So I'm excited to share a few reflections. I promised Rochelle I would keep it down to 3 themes. And so we all know, even though the shutdown is over, I think we can agree that the anxiety, uncertainty, the chaos still persists. And we're seeing quite a shift, especially across both philanthropic partners and kind of local partners. There's been definitely a shift from focusing on federal policy, although that work is still happening, advocacy is still happening, but we are seeing a shift to focus more on what can we do at the state level, what can we do locally. And so we've been hearing and been part of conversations with quite a few philanthropic partners that's where folks are seeing the ability to keep making progress, keep supporting change in the work on the ground. There's also been part of that shift that we're seeing has also been a shift to support more direct services, recognizing that with everything going on and so many different funding sources having been eliminated or drastically cut or threatened, we're seeing a response locally to fill in some of those gaps as much as possible. And this area of responsive types of funding opportunities. The second kind of area that we're seeing around opportunities to keep things moving is work at, this is more on the federal side, but there does seem to be, interest in reforming the Chafee Act, which is for folks who are not as familiar as with Chafee, but it is a federal funding source for to support services and resources for young people who are transitioning out of foster care. And there's been a lot of attention on Chafee in the last few months. There have been Ways and Means hearings on Chafee, and we are expecting an executive order this week specifically around older youth in foster care and who have transitioned out of foster care. And we think that there's going to be additional attention to the ETVs, the vouchers to support, to help offset the costs of education and training types of programs for young people who are exiting care. So that's something that we're keeping an eye on, of course, since we specifically focus at the foundation on transition age foster youth 14 to 26. Another area that we're seeing opportunities to keep moving, while it's anticipated that HUD is drastically cutting funding for housing and homelessness, FYI vouchers seem to still be safe. So we're going to keep doing that work. And I know a lot of, the folks locally in Los Angeles and One Roof and La Casa, like all the folks are, trying to increase how we're drawing down those vouchers locally and ensuring that young people have access to support services while they are, to lease up those vouchers and support housing stability. And there seems to be an ally with Alex Adams, who was recently appointed confirmed to be the Assistant Secretary overseeing the Administration for Children and Families. For folks who, so Mr. Adams comes from Idaho. He was the former Health and Welfare Director. And he's actually been very supportive of improving outcomes for youth aging out, expanding the practices in the Prevention Clearinghouse, increasing access to affordable childcare. And, I think part of, and he is also supportive of increasing the age that young people are eligible for services, whether that's still being in foster care or even after they've exited foster care. So we're tracking some of that and excited about what's going to come out, what might come out there. And then I'd say that the third theme of what we're noticing at a national level is that there continues to be, everything going on, there still continues to be quite, a lot of momentum around prevention, and realizing the vision of family first, having fewer young people in congregate placements and more young people in kinship care. So there's a lot that we're noticing communities and states trying to figure out, how do we realize that dream? How do we swim upstream and ensure that young people and families are getting the resources that they need so that they never have to go through the actual family separation part? And so all the work to shift from mandated reporting to mandated supporting, it's getting a lot of attention. And there are quite a few communities across the country who are really working in that space. And I think that intersection of, if we are going to be able to provide the services that youth and families need, when they come to the attention of the child welfare system, what are those other services, and how can we diversify funding streams for those services, including connecting to Medicaid as a funding source. And so there's a lot of, I think Los Angeles specifically is doing so much work in each of these different areas. And so I think my message for FTN today is to keep up the incredible work. There's so much that we're doing locally that national partners and partners in other states are paying attention to. And I'm really excited, for the rest of the agenda today, and all of the different initiatives and new resources that are going to be discussed today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I really, really appreciate you, Angela, and your whole team at Hilton for being consistent connectors between the national work and the local work. We're going to count on you to keep us informed early around what evolves with Chafee and around the housing work, because we know you guys are deep in it at both levels. And we really appreciate that. I do also just want to echo and lift up what Angela said about the rest of the nation looking at what LA has done around prevention. I don't know if you guys have looked at the numbers, but in LA, we have achieved an insane drop in the number of kids who are in care, going from about 22,000 to 12,000 out of home care approximately over the past 5 years, which is ginormous. And that is really to a lot of your credit. A lot of folks working on thinking about, how do we actually prevent instead of detain. And that's huge, and it is something that I agree with Angela. We can continue the momentum here and help spread it to other geographies. So without further ado, I want to pass it to my friend Jennie Feria, who's going to help us understand a little bit more about what DCFS is doing in that vein with their reorg.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen. Oops. There we go. Can you see my slideshow? I can't see you, so if somebody can just...
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet?
No, it's not coming up.
I went off Wi-Fi. Is that better? Did it come through?
No, it didn't. We have the actual org chart, but I don't think we have your slides to project on our side.
No, I can just talk through it then.
Do you want us to put up the org chart while you're talking, or no? Or drop in the chat?
We can. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to share the department has been going through a reorganization. The reason for the reorganization really is to build a more cohesive and aligned department. We realized some pain points, especially during the pandemic, when we were struggling with placements and keeping kids kind of in various types of placements, that even the placement programs were all in various areas of the department. But there have been other areas as well that we found that could benefit from organizing better so that the work can be more efficient. And one important thing is, as most of you know, the county and the department is going through really tough budget cycles. And so this restructuring is definitely cost neutral. And so we're also taking the opportunity in the reorg to focus strategically on underinvested areas as well. And some of those areas are parent services, creating focus areas and on parent services, as well as our 0 to 5 population with our young children in care program, our transition age youth with the YES units, as well as a workforce support. We have a whole bureau that's dedicated to workforce development, and then also to support, better quality and intentional social work practice. So those are kind of the highlights of the focus areas of what you may be seeing. And the reorg is, we're told to call it a functional reorg. We began moving into this temporary structure on September 1st, and we're doing it in 3 steps. So September 1st was a higher level movement. We now have 2 chief deputy directors. I am one of 2, and I am over child welfare services, and Lisa Mandel is the acting chief deputy director over admin operations. And then we also added a 3rd senior deputy director. We have Cynthia McCoy Miller, who is over programs for children and families, which houses our placement and permanency bureau, as well as our children in Tay bureau, which is led by Min Sun Meeker. And forgot to say, placement and permanency bureau is led by Rob Woolridge, and the family and community bureau is led by Angela Parks Piles. And so then the next branch is the child welfare services branch. And that is basically our regional offices plus our court services. And that is Diane Iglesias, who is leading that branch. And then our 3rd senior deputy director is over admin operations, is acting senior deputy director Rogelio Tapia. And then step 2 of the functional reorg went into effect October 1st. And that is realigning kind of the program or division chief level programs under each of those deputy directors. So some of the movement was aligning all of the placement programs in the placement and permanency bureau under Rob's leadership. And again, pulling together the elements that support workforce development under Amy Jaffe's leadership. Really realigning some of the programs. What we found is we had some programs on in the mega bureau, which was one of the former bureaus, and some over under services. So we are now creating the 2 bureaus that should house all services, which is children in Tay and then family and community. Min Sun Meeker and Angela will be working hand in hand, and that's who you probably will be interfacing with the most in ensuring that we have a robust spectrum of services to offer our kids and families. And then just the 3rd phase of the functional reorg is really going to go into effect November 15th, and this is kind of the lower level reorganizations of smaller programs. So I shared the structure with adding the additional chief deputy director, as well as a 3rd senior deputy director, and then the realignment of programs. The offices had already gone through an earlier reorg where we focused 1 deputy director on SPA 6, that's Reggie Carter, similar to kind of the focus that we placed in the Antelope Valley Lisa Whitecrow, who has just the Antelope Valley offices. So those two areas should have specialized focus in meeting those communities, unique needs. And that's kind of about it. I think on what you can expect, I think I call it a functional reorg because the CEO really wants me to say it that way, because it will take 6 to 12 months for all of the paperwork to be completed before they can officially say it's, permanent, official, everything's done. So but internally, and what you may see in the next 6 to 12 months is kind of some of those changes with the alignment. Some of our folks realigning things around within their bureau. Some people are new to their function. And so really kind of us working on organizing the work better. And hopefully it's less confusing, because I know maybe sometimes you want to work on a specific area and then you have to ask, because it could, depending on what it's about, it could be one person, and then it could also be multiple people, which is really difficult, I'm sure, for you guys as external stakeholders to say, who is this that I should be working with. So hopefully the new reorg will just be, you'll have, Angela, Min, and then we have very, very clear kind of roles. And I'll stop there or pause there and see if there's questions. Okay, any questions? Does it all make sense to folks, or any areas that it looks kind of off to you? You actually can't say looks because my thing didn't come up. Okay, and like any other time, if you have questions or you're having trouble connecting or you're unsure, feel free to reach out to myself, Lisa, or anybody on our team, and we can definitely direct you. But we appreciate the partnership and ask for your patience as we organize ourselves better so that we can do better work with you and be better partners. So thank you.
Thank you. And I do think there's a question from Nancy. Nancy, do you want to come off mute and ask the question?
Yes, good morning, everyone. And thank you, Jennie, so much for that presentation. That was a lot, Jennie. So is there a simple 1 or 2 pager that you have that can outline who's who and who does what department? Is that something that you all are able to do?
Yeah, I can go ahead and send out the PowerPoint that I was going to put up, and then they can circulate it to you guys.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
And Nancy, if you can access the chat, we did drop the actual org chart in the chat, and we'll send that out as well with Jennie's slides. Sorry about that issue this morning. Thank you. Other questions? Awesome. Well, I will just say thank you, Jennie, and everybody at DCFS. From the perspective of one community partner, I can say I was really happy to see what you guys had decided to do, because it does feel like it's going to make it a lot easier for us as FTN partners to plug in and partner and move work, because we won't have quite as many projects where it's like there's 5 different people you need to work with and they're all under 5 different lines of decision making, because you have actually consolidated a lot of things very logically together. So decisions hopefully will be able to be made a lot more clearly. And if we need to reach out for advocacy or support, it's a lot more logical who you work with to move the work. So we're really excited about it, making it easier for our community partners and philanthropy to plug in with you. So Dr. Reynoso is here from DMH. Let's move to her. I also do want to just call out, as we transition, Angela dropped some really useful links in the chat around some of the national level work. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please do feel free to jump into the chat and look at some of the things that she dropped in there. Dr. Reynoso.
Hi, can you see my screen?
Perfectly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Rochelle, for having me here today. Hi, friends. Very excited about this work that we're doing through DMH to support our transition age youth, particularly standing up this new office of TAY, next week. We're very excited about all of the enhancements, components that are coming. But I wanted to share with you, oh, it's not advancing. Hold on one second. Okay, there we go. I wanted to share with you a little bit of an overview. I will dig into the deeps really quickly just to give you a sense of what our core services have been and where we're moving towards in this new Office of TAE. So just as an overview, the Department of Mental Health, we serve over 250,000 residents of all ages every year. We have county contracts with close to 1,000 organizations and individual practitioners to provide a variety of mental health related services. We provide directly operated programs in more than 85 sites and provide services throughout contracted programs at approximately 300 sites. And just as an overview on specific transition age youth population, the California census data tells us that there's approximately 1.1 million young people in our county. So it is a big population that we're really trying to intentionally serve mental health services and supports. I have on here the needs of our TAE population specific to mental health. We've been hearing through different convenings throughout the years that we need to shift and take a look at healing journeys for young people. You know, traditional mental health services have been great, but they don't work well for every young person. So we've really been strategic on expanding what mental health services look like, what wellness services, community services look like for this population. And that's what we intend to really bring into the Office of TAE. Our early work, and this is the part that I wanted to share with you, although in the Department of Mental Health, the last couple of years we've had TAE services, they've been somewhat all over the place, all over the department. Like, I don't want to say dismantled, but absorbed in different units. And that is under different leadership. We had, you know, more work focused in service areas. Now we realized through our stakeholder engagement process, through more connectiveness with our TAE population, that this population is unique. We need to centralize services. We need to be thoughtful and more tailored, more TAE responsive. So under Dr. Wong's leadership and with the support of our Senior Deputy Director, Mary Barraza, as many of you know, decided let's centralize this and ensure that TAE voice and our youth leadership stakeholders are at the table to help us bring back formal TAE unit, which we called the Office of TAE. I'm sorry, I wanted to highlight here our mission for this newly coming Office of TAE. The structure is built with one central goal: to connect and engage transition age youth. In the department, we operationalize this as ages 16 to 25 with comprehensive, responsive, and relevant mental health support and enhanced access to resources. That says a lot, that encompasses a lot, and we are working towards that mission. So these are our core services that have existed beyond from day one. We've had our enhanced emergency shelter program, our EESP, field-based team, drop-in centers, TAE drop-in centers, SUD supports with substance use counselors on site at both drop-in centers and the EESPs and in the community to support those youth who struggle with substances. We've also always had a workforce job development specialist that is their focus to engage young people in community colleges, in their communities, through workforce centers, to engage them in their interests for future job and career planning. So I'm going to go a little bit back and forth so you can see. Oops. So the core services, this is our always existing bread and butter of our program, which is the EESP. It's a shelter program that serves our young people 18 to 25. And it's not only a shelter program, it comes with mental health services and support. So the team includes a mental health clinician, a housing specialist that is well-versed in all of the, LAHSA, CES, all the processes to help the young person ultimately get permanent supportive housing. So each person that agrees to be a part of the shelter program, they get a team. If the SUD supports and the job placement supports are also needed, that they also become part of that young person's team. And this is just give you an idea of one of the programs, the shelter locations, the environment looks like. And we have 8 shelters across the county, concentrated in service areas 2, 4, and 6. So that's the San Fernando Valley, the metro area, and service area 6 is Compton, Watts, more on our south end. Another core service that is our bread and butter is our TAY Drop-In Center. TAY Drop-In Center system. So these have always existed, and they provide temporary safety and basic supports for TAY who are homeless or in unstable living situations, provide welcoming environments in which TAY can make friends, participate in activities, access computers, basically get their basic needs met. And the thing I will say about the TAY Drop-In Centers that do exist across the county, in at least 2 in every service area, young people, we know they don't come in asking for mental health services. So you have amazing staff who work at every TAY Drop-In Center and know how to engage them, know how to build relationships with young people who, end up coming back to these TAY Drop-In Centers, and eventually they ask for mental health or supportive services. So we find that this is a lot of times the entry point for TAY mental health services for our young people. And just so you could see what it looks like, one of our TAY Drop-In Centers. Okay, so like I said, under Dr. Wong's leadership and Senior Deputy Director Barraza, there were conversations about not only bringing back TAY, centralizing it, but also taking the lead from our board that has been prioritizing this population since 2018 with the pioneer board motion of the TAY Resource Hub. And I don't have to tell many of you, there's been averaging about 30 TAY motions, TAY-related motions a year, with the same purpose to continue to support this population and very clearly messaging that it is a priority population in LA County and throughout the state, as we're seeing with the specific mandates, policies related to BHSA that we're seeing for our TAE population. So I shared the mission. This is really our core, where we're trying to move with the Office of TAE to move also from the core services that have been tertiary, really on the back end. We want to start moving towards prevention and early intervention, ensuring that we're capturing not only those youth that are disconnected currently, but working upstream. And so we're partnering very closely with some of our other units in the department, like our school-based teams, our probation teams, our child welfare teams, to see how we can best develop ways to provide upstream mental health services to our children and youth. I'll kind of skip this because I know I'm running a little bit short on time, and you will have a copy of this. Just wanted to point to you that we do have in progress website, but some of the core services are in there, including how to locate our TAE drop-in centers, how to access our EESPs through our website, and the field-based team that supports them. Whoops, sorry. I meant to go back to this just quickly. The Youth Bridges team, that's the next phase of the Office of TAE that will be coming online. This is a formal field-based team that will just focus on those disconnected youth, on ensuring that they're in those places like schools, community colleges, in the community, supporting TAE to get reconnected and working upstream, as I mentioned. So that entails working closely with our school-based team, creating internship, mentorship opportunities, professional development. I know we have some of our OYC partners here with us. We're working to really create this pipeline for young people to be our colleagues. We have a couple of mental health advocates that we were able to hire, that we are committed to continue to hire to become community health workers that will support the young people in these programs. And it'll be, them to decide if they want to focus more on like the one-on-one mentorship opportunities to support our TAE in the shelters, the drop-in centers, or if they want to do more policy work alongside us, creating different parts of the programs that we're looking to build, et cetera. So we're very excited about this Youth Bridges team that's formally coming in about a month or so. As Jennie mentioned, there's some bureaucracy, some paperwork that takes time, but we're very excited about this team that is coming. Some of our field-based team members are already doing some of these things, but bringing the Youth Bridges on board formally, they will be dedicated to expanding these services.
That's fantastic. It's wonderful
I
that you're
will
launching.
stop there.
There are some questions in the chat. Angelina, I don't know if you want to kick us off and come off mute. Okay, I'll read out.
I will. Sorry, my computer's being very slow today. And it's fine. All of the questions are from the Hilton team. I don't know how to feel about that. My specific question was really around wondering how, Dr. Reynoso, you're thinking about your department's work and partnership with DYD and sort of what that will look like or could look like, and what you're excited about that in terms of working together.
Yes, and all of it. We have existing partnerships. with several of our partner agencies, including DYD, the Department of Economic Opportunity, of course, our partners at DCFS and probation, like under Jennie's team, the Authentic Youth Engagement, where that team and our TAY team are pretty much in lockstep. We're looking to co-locate in some of our TAY drop-in centers. And we're not only with DCFS, but other partner agencies really trying to find creative ways to have availability and access to mental health, but our partners that we know young people need. So that's already been happening. We're excited to partner with anyone who wants to, particularly in the job, in the workforce development field. DMH is a little bit new to that space. So we do have our OIC partners that we often look to for advice or recommendations, but we have started our DEO conversations and our partnerships specifically too with our community college partners. We're onboarding to, for the very first time in DMH, to internships for community college students. So yes, we're very excited about that as well. So it's sometimes I get impatient and it's not happening fast enough, but happy to hear ideas from you all as well on directions and how we can maybe partner better to stand some of these things up quicker.
I think if you're talking to Lori and the OIC team, you're probably very well set up for that.
Yes. Thank you.
So I know Kelly had a comment in the chat. Kelly, I didn't think it was a question as much as more of a reflection. If you had a question to go with it, feel free to raise your hand. Let's go to Angela next, who had another question in there. And then we'll go to Kawina.
We really do have all the questions. Sorry, Dr. Reynoso. This is what happens when we couldn't make the meeting that you had. I was curious about how the offices of TAY is thinking about the more general kind of well-being and types of supports that can often kind of get young people to the door eventually for more formal mental and behavioral health services, but are often needing kind of a different way to engage before they do that.
Yes.
Curious how you all are thinking about that.
Yes, we're hearing very intently that feedback that has come in from our young people, specifically TAY, looking at it through a developmental lens. We find that, those who are just fresh out of systems, they're not so much super interested in continuing the traditional mental health services route. We find that a little bit older populations, 21 plus, that's when, they start feeling like they're getting tired of being tired and are acknowledging, I need to address some of this trauma. How do I do that? How do I get my foot in the door, but maybe not exactly with what I know to be those mental health services that didn't exactly work for me. So as we're hearing these different ways that they want to explore their healing journeys, we're very much reaching out to those providers that may offer more expressive type of healing services, wellness services. We had an incubation academy for the last 2 years in which we recognize there's so many great organizations that can help to connect with us to continue that work. So we're very much open. And, if my senior deputy director, she's very open to exploring partnerships, formal partnerships with those type of organizations to promote our young people's healing in a different way, because we recognize that everyone's healing journeys are different. And that path to it may be different. And we're also hearing very clearly for those young people that tell us, I've heard time and time and again, especially from our like CSEC population, those that have been impacted from a sexual exploitation from CSEC, that Erica, I know what I need. I need EMDR, for instance. So looking to expand those type of very specific mental health services within our system is something that the leaders need to really take a look at and move on. I hope that answered your question.
It does. Thank you so much, Dr. Reynoso. That's amazing. Can't wait to learn more about the healing journey work in particular.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up on that before we this question. In the past couple of years, DMH has been amazing about sponsoring well-being related efforts or community-based teen opportunities through basically passing money to DYD that they got out into community-based organizations, giving money to the arts who got things out to community-based organizations. And then we also have this year the funding for Level Up, which similarly paid for community-based activities for TAE. Their current funding stream ends in June. Can you share a little bit about to what extent will DMH be able to, through this program, continue to fund things in partnership with arts or DYD, or potentially even help fill that gap for those well-being and strength-based services that are so helpful to teens?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know, Rochelle, because the impact for the BHSA transformation, there's a lot still being worked out. We know in the TAE program, our school-based program, that those types of partnerships are so invaluable. But I really couldn't say for sure where the monies will end up going. I know that one great thing is that BHSA is really being intentional, clear about supporting some of these alternative ways to support community, support our TAE population. So that's a great thing. And, if we can leverage our early intervention pots and money, I think we'll be okay.
Buena.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Reynoso. I actually had several questions, but I'm going to focus on this one and then try to sneak in another one. Sorry, we're a question-heavy group, but I was curious about what you're hearing at the state level or seeing at the state level and how that's impacting the work in LA in the upcoming year. Excuse me, especially in light of like this new Office of TAE being established and where you envision it going over the next year, and how is LA planning for what you're hearing at the state, especially in light of these efforts. And then I also wanted to ask, when you were just mentioning the school-based partnerships are invaluable, do you see that as the effort to swim upstream? I heard you reference swimming upstream a little bit. So is it that school-based work that is really the strategy in order to get to young people, address their mental health needs before they're transitioning into that like transition age, youth age range?
Yes. And through our partnerships with community-based organizations, as well as our partners like DYD, like the Youth Commission, and several others that, can help us get in those spaces to continually listen to young people, but also bring them into our existing processes, our stakeholder processes, and which is going on right now. And one of the things that I also wanted to leave you with is a flyer that you can share with your youth networks, because we're really being intentional this year to have youth sessions for BHSA so young people themselves can tell us what they need as we transform into BHSA. So the other question about the state, I think we're going to be okay in terms of serving our children and youth because of, reading the guidelines and what the expectations are from the state. But it's shifting so many different areas within our system that it's not super clear how it will eventually look. Like, for instance, our children and youth directly operated clinics, there's less of a clear funding that will go to them. So we're going to have to shift into a more early intervention type of approach and model, which is great. It aligns with what we're trying to do with the TAE population. But there's so many parts that are just still really fuzzy. And just a side note, we do want to partner with all of you and hear from you. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a presentation proposal to the center with Kate Anderson and some of her colleagues. Some of you may be here about some specific asks, some specific ideas that we're looking to create through the Office of TAE. So we are happy to reach out with whoever wants to partner and be innovative in supporting this population.
Great, thank you. Queen, I know you mentioned you had other questions. I don't know if you want to ask one more, and then we will, after that, any other questions folks have, put in the chat so we can pop to the next agenda item.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So I've been hearing a lot about this new Department of Homelessness Services and Housing, and I was just curious if there was any overlap or collaboration, considering you were sharing in the beginning of your presentation about the housing aspect.
Yes, thank you, Kowina. We are with our TAE office in several spaces. We're a part of the Youth Homeless System Improvement work. We're a key partner along with our DCFS partners. So we have the opportunity to hear directly from youth leaders in that space about what they're recommending in terms of TAE service in the new county department. And they, as a group, also made formal recommendations about that. We're also in the One Roof space and others that are looking to ensure that youth housing service is tailored as much as possible, because we know that this is a unique population that has special needs. So we're in those conversations, but internally too, we're the Office of TAE is communicating clearly and very often to our housing unit, who, they're the experts of everything housing, but they don't necessarily know TAE. So we're serving as subject matter expert as they're, rolling out specific TAE interim housing opportunities for TAE and families. And so we're advising and ensuring that anything that's coming out from our end in terms of interim housing, that does have that TAE focus. So I hope that helps.
That does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Any additional questions, definitely feel free to drop them in the chat. Erica can respond that way. Erica, if you want to drop your presentation in the chat, we're happy to send that out to folks after as well. Really appreciate you joining us today and really appreciate everything that you are doing for our youth.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
appreciate you.
We're going to go to our elevator level updates next. Dorothy, let's start with you. We appreciate Dorothy Daniels coming from Foster Unity. Then we'll go to you, Angel. Angel Ratings coming and representing OIC. and the Alliance's work around mentorship and other supports. And then I'll give a brief update. Dorothy.
Thank you, Rochelle. All right, guys, jump on the elevator. In a world where the challenges faced by foster youth can often feel overwhelming, the therapeutic shelter home and therapeutic foster home programs stand as beacons of hope, innovation, and compassion. Launched by DCFS in collaboration with Fostering Unity and Optimist Family Hopes in July of 2023, TSH marks a significant shift from traditional shelter care, offering a therapeutic and individualized approach designed to cater to the unique emotional and developmental needs of a child. The foundation of TSH is built on achieving remarkable outcomes, evidenced by our effectiveness in promoting stability and emotional well-being. From February to July of 2024, the program has achieved notable success, including a 74% reduction in ITRAC incidents compared to the TSCF and an extraordinary 84% reduction in AWOL incidents. Our goal is clear: to eliminate traditional congregate care shelters in Los Angeles County by offering personalized temporary housing for one child at a time or sibling sets until we can secure long-term placements tailored to their unique needs. As we move forward, we have introduced therapeutic foster home program, further enhancing our commitment to empowering youth facing severe complexities. This program is uniquely designed to provide long-term care for those requiring intensive support, focusing on fostering self-control and resilience. Both the TSH and the TFH represent a thoughtful and strategic response to the unique challenges that foster youth encounter. Now, as a current update, so you're on that elevator, we currently have 3 of our 4 TSCF shelters now permanently closed. TSH is providing all countywide shelter care except for new detentions temporarily going through Wayfinder. Wayfinder is scheduled to close in January of 26. After that, all children needing shelter will go through TSH. Youth, non-minor dependents, children currently in TSH include youth with ankle monitors, gang activity, severe mental health, and CSEC, among other challenges. Our expectation for TSH, the growth is remarkable. We started with 2 caregivers in July of 23. We are now at a current 31 caregivers. We have 5 more caregivers pending RFA clearance. Our goal is 48 homes by January of 26. TFH, we currently have 3 TFH homes placed with highly complex need children, all still placement stable, 100% success. The children are thriving. By increasing the TFH to the projected 10 homes who are ready to accept placements, we can offer a natural transition from TSH to TFH for long-term placement for more complex youth. The innovative programs have such great potential in reducing the need for congregate care. There's your update.
Thank you. That is an incredible report in terms of outcomes. When you say 84% reduction in AWOLs and 100% stability in the other program, those are really wonderful numbers for a population that we had previously been struggling to serve. So I encourage folks to put questions for Dorothy in the chat. Since these are just elevator level updates, we'll go next to our mentorship update. Angel?
Hi, everyone. My name is Angel, and I'm the Youth Mentoring Nexus Engagement Coordinator with the LAOIC. Sorry, early morning. I work directly alongside 13 young leader visionaries on the Youth Mentoring Nexus work. And I'm really just excited to share that our visionaries have officially completed a full set of recommendations for how to strengthen mentorship across LA County or Los Angeles. Over the past year, they've pretty much been shaping a clear framework for what really high quality youth-centered mentorship should look like. And and that being rooted in like lived experience, co-design, and genuine connections across programs. I really can't emphasize enough how much of a milestone this is. There's been a lot of hours, time put into this work. And I just really want to celebrate them and how far we've come as a network with our youth-driven team. So a little overview of the work. Our final recommendations span over 5 pillars. The first pillar being training to help mentors build safety, trust, and accountability. The second being holistic stability, ensuring youth have access to well-being supports beyond mentorship. Representation, really centering youth voice and diverse lived experience in every level of mentorship. Education, background, and experience, which pretty much is aligning mentors' knowledge with youth goals around school, career, and other areas of growth. And lastly, interface/pathways. And that's really just reimagining how young people connect with mentors, both digitally and in person, just making the process more natural, accessible, and relational. And all these things really come together to form a roadmap for more connected, inclusive, and responsive mentorship ecosystem. Our visionaries are now working on where their mentoring recommendations would be applicable, and really hope for the opportunity soon to come present to community and organizational leaders to help implement their recommendations that they're so proud of. And now that the recommendations are complete, we're partnering with YES and Level Up to strengthen mentorship pathways across Los Angeles through a co-design with the visionaries, which helps align systems so youth can really just find and build relationships with people who truly understand and support them. Also, side note, I'd really like to take a moment to lift up something we've also been hearing from our young leaders and young people across the board. The changes from SNAP benefits have created issues for so many people. And because of that, we compiled some local resources and community partners that are really just offering free or low cost food options, some childcare resources across LA County. And I'll drop that link in the chat now for you to share across your networks. But yeah, lastly, we'll just be sharing the visionaries' recommendations widely soon, so be on the lookout. And we really are happy to continue to collaborate with networks that foster together to put work like this into action. So really just thank you all for championing youth leadership and for helping us build a more connected, caring mentorship landscape. And that's my elevator pitch.
Thank you, Angel, for your awesome leadership and for sharing those SNAP resources in the chat. I'll keep mine quick because I know we have Angie Schwartz and Emily Smallson here ready to go. We have been continuing to move forward around innovative models of care. We have a briefing on Monday we'd like to invite all of you to. I just dropped the registration for that in the chat. We've got over 70 folks registered already for it. Would love to see you there. And the focus is lifting up ways that local nonprofits have been using some of the new funding streams to be innovative in serving youth with complex needs. So we have leaders from Orangewood, Koinonia, and St. Anne's coming to talk about how they are using both Medi-Cal funding streams and innovative models of care state funding to launch some models for specific populations like school affiliated populations, pregnant and parenting teens, etc. So look forward to seeing many of you there. Again, feel free to pop into the chat to link to the registration. So with that, I will pass it to Emily and Angie, who are going to give us an update on the state work and have some Q&A opportunity for folks.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Angie Schwartz. I'm the Deputy Director of the Children and Family Services Division at the Department of Social Services. Emily?
Morning. My name is Emily Smallson. I am a project manager at the Department of Social Services, supporting with the implementation of the tiered foster care rate structure.
So we were asked to just come do a brief presentation today with some highlights of where we are, but we really wanted to start with the why of this reform, which is really transformational, and ground people in the opportunity and the impact that we believe it is going to have on our ability to better support children and families in the settings where we know that they do the very best, which is with their own families and extended family members. And we really wanted to ground people in that and then give you a little bit of an overview of where we are and some highlights of things that I think are places where organizations and philanthropy can really invest to help bring about this vision and make sure it has the transformational impact that we anticipate it will have. So next slide. Next slide. So in terms of the why, we spent a lot of time. This all started with conversations that we were having around all of the young people with unmet complex care needs and how do we best support those needs. And we really looked at data, and we really see in the data where children are the most stable, where they are the most successful. And you all know this, but this is California data, and I do think it's very telling that the percent of children who have a first placement with relatives who are still with that relative, if they're still in care at the 12-month mark, they're still with that same relative, is 68%. It's been higher than that in some years. For those with non-relatives, it's only 25% that are still with that same placement. That trend continues even as you go out to 2 years that the young person is in foster care. That stability within the setting of someone that they know and that they love, their family and extended family. This data always includes both kinship and NRFMs, as we like to call them in California, which stands for non-related extended family members, is true. And we've sliced and diced. I've only given you a couple of slides here on the data, but we've really looked at sort of the data from every angle on the impact of stability and well-being and placement with siblings and improved outcomes. And everywhere you slice the data, it looks better for the children that are in placement with their relatives. Next slide. We also look at the ACEs data. So I'm sure you're all familiar with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and know that the more ACEs a young person has experienced, the more likelihood that there will be significant adverse outcomes related to depression and anxiety, suicidality, internalizing, externalizing behaviors, trouble with jobs and relationships, right? All of those things. But what the data also tells us is those adverse childhood experiences can really be mitigated by positive childhood experiences. So if you look at this chart, it's showing the yellow line is young people that have experienced 4 to 8 ACEs. So that's a really high number of ACEs. And when they can only recall 0 to 2 positive childhood experiences, there's very high rates of depression and poor mental health among that population. But you can see as the number of positive childhood experiences that can be recollected increases, that decreases profoundly. And so those positive childhood experiences are things like family, connection, participation in enrichment activities, what we are now calling strength building activities under the tiered rate structure, that ability to be part of community and culture, to have people that are known and trusted, and to have experiences that are positive and that sort of are what we want for all of our kids, right? And that not only is that something that we want, but it's something that has a profound impact on mitigating the adverse outcomes associated with ACEs that we know every single young person in foster care has experienced. Next slide. We've also looked at the data associated with our youth that are in STRTPs. So STRTPs are the short-term residential therapeutic programs. And we see from their CAN scores, and this is again California data, we looked at the CAN scores for the youth before they entered the STRTP and then after 6 months of being within the STRTP, and see that it is not leading to a resolution of mental health issues. both behavioral and emotional, and that actually the rates of depression are increasing. And that is really baked into the whole notion of like why we need STRTP placements to be truly short-term and therapeutic. And really part of that therapeutic nature is always knowing that there's someone on the other end of that who's cheering for you and who's part of your family and who's rooting for you. So like that family connection, that family attachment is critical for our youth, regardless of where they are. And so we really want to make sure that we never lose sight of the need for youth to have connection and attachment and family. Next slide. So step in the tiered rate structure. I could spend so much more time on data with you, and if you ever want a like deep dive into all of the data that we look at, happy to do that. But we came, the innovations of the tiered rate structure, I think, are very supportive of the culture we're trying to create within our child welfare system, which is a culture where all children who have to experience separation from a parent stay within their own community with people that they know and love, with their relatives, with their extended family members, and that we really invest in children being able to be with their families and within their communities. And there are innovations associated with the tiered rate structure that allow us to do that. I was asked by someone recently, we've always said kin is important. We've had kin first culture for a really long time in California. We've talked about the importance of kin for forever. So like, what's going to change? And what I said back is structurally, we've never actually supported that. So we say it, but we haven't actually created a structure that invests in it, that really enables structurally every single child to receive that level of support and that level of service, even with when they're, especially when, I shouldn't say even, especially when they're with their own families and their extended family members. So the tiered rate structure uses a validated assessment tool, the CANS, in order to assess the level of strengths and immediate needs the child has and to invest directly in those things. It does that by creating 2 new categories of funding that we've never had as part of our rate system before. So the strength building program and the immediate needs program. And then it does that regardless of where the child is situated. So none of the funding is associated with a placement anymore. It's all associated with the child's assessed level of needs, and that funding flows regardless of the placement setting that the child is placed into. What that means really practically speaking is there is no more STRTP rate, there is no more FFA rate, there are simply tiers, and a child is assigned to a tier based on that CAN score and then receives that commensurate level of funding, even and especially, again, when they're with relatives and extended family members. Next slide. Just to put a like fine point on it, when we talk about like how structurally it doesn't work right now to support kids within those family settings, most of the time, our young people that are placed with relatives right now would be in the basic level. Some of them are in LOC2. We see very few kids in LOC3 or LOC4. That's partly because our level of care system is not a validated tool the way CANS is. But even at LOC4, sort of the most support that you're going to receive within a family setting is about $1,700 a month right now. Or if the child has a higher level of acuity of need, we can find an intensive services foster care home for them. Most of the time, those are not their own relatives. They could be, but structurally, it's not really set up that way. And so most of the time they're not. So you're moving the child into a separate type of home. And then the only time that the highest level of funding is available to support kids with the most complex level of acuity is when they're in the STRTPs. So we've always talked about we want to not have to rely on STRTPs to serve the highest level of need, and yet that $17,000 that's attached to that placement only flows for kids that are within that placement. We have tried to do some things, like some one-off things with child-specific funding that allow counties to innovate a little bit around the edges, but this is how it's set up for the, every kid that comes into care, like this is the system that they confront right now. Next slide. We have slides that go through the tiered rate structure at every single level of the tiered rate structure, but in the interest of time, Just to put the point on it, under the complex rate structure, if you have a youth who's assessed into tier 3+, and you want to support that child in a family setting, the support that flows to that child through the strength building program, through care and supervision dollars that would go to the caregiver, through the immediate needs program, is that $11,296 a month, exactly the same funding that flows when the youth is placed in an STRTP. And then there's admin dollars that also flow to the STRTP placement or to an FFA if the child is placed through an FFA. And if you add that $7,213 of admin dollars to that funding that's there to directly support the child, it equals that STRTP rate of the previous slide. And so what we're doing under the tiered rate structure is saying structurally, all of these funds should flow to support that child, regardless of whether or not it's grandma that's caring for them, and we should have a rate system that really robustly allows grandma to do the work that we're asking her to do for a young person with the most complex level of need, right? So care and supervision rate of $6,296 a month is recognizing the extraordinary level of work that is going to be required, 24/7 care and supervision, having to have other folks coming in and out of the home, lots of demands on transportation and needs for other caregivers and specialized diets and all of the things that you know are associated with kids. And we've never supported that level of care and supervision for children within family placements until the tiered rate structure. It also makes it a direct investment in the child's strength building. Going back to that slide I showed you about the power of positive childhood experiences, this is that power and a direct investment in making sure that all young people can participate in those enrichment activities. And there's additional funding there at this level to support the kinds of supportive services that a young person is going to need in order to really take advantage of enrichment activities. So every youth in foster care will receive at least $500 a month in strength building funds. And then there's additional dollars for kids with more complex needs in recognition of the fact that there's also going to be a need for more supports and services in order for them to benefit from those experiences. And then the immediate needs program is being designed in conjunction with the high fidelity wrap bundle that the Department of Healthcare Services is creating. And so that allows us to really robustly invest in meeting the immediate needs of that child. And again, can do it in a family setting and make sure that those services and supports are flowing, and they don't have to be within an institution in order for that to be true. And so when you think about the structural transformation that the tiered rate structure represents, it really puts so many new tools into the toolbox of our placing agencies and our caregivers and our families in order to do the work to really support kids and to make sure that we can really meet their needs in the places where we know that they heal and they thrive, which is in their family homes. All of that foundation is to say, we need all of you in order to make this implementation successful, because this is massively different than the way that we do things right now. And it is going to take everyone rowing in the same direction and working together in order to bring about really the practice changes and the culture changes that allows this structural transformation to really take hold and deliver upon the promise. So with that, I'll turn it to Emily to tell you about the work we're doing right now to implement this massive reform.
Thanks so much, Angie, and good morning again, everyone. Thank you for having us. So again, Angie touched on the policy and the data and kind of the vision behind the policy. So now I'm here to talk about and break down a bit how we're framing and looking at implementation, where we're at in implementation, and kind of the key deliverables that are on the horizon for the next year or so of implementation. So we've broken
just on a time check, just so you know, we're at 12:47. So we do want some time for Q&A just in terms of helping you think about pacing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I can zoom through these quickly. So at a high level, we've broken down the implementation into 5 separate categories. I'm going to quickly touch on 4 of those categories today. And then this slide here breaks down the phases of implementation that we have in terms of timing. And so Everything Angie just talked about, it goes live on July 1 of 2027. So it was chaptered in 2024. So we have a 3-year period in which we are preparing everything necessary so that everything's ready to go live on July 1 of 2027. And right now here you can see number 2, we are in the thick of the preparation phase. And so I'm just going to quickly run over the things that we're working on right now for rates within the preparation phase. So the first category we have is cans and CFTs. So Angie talked about the fact that the cans kind of drive the tier. So we know that cans and CFT fidelity and completion rates are integral and critical to the success of the rate structure as a whole. So for the next 6 months that are remaining in the preparation phase, the key things that we want to happen are to publish the phase 2 of cans alignment with our colleagues at DHCS. We had the phase 1 alignment published a couple weeks back, and I can put a link to that joint guidance in the chat. We want to continue working with our county colleagues to make sure we're doing data entry into CARES Live on CANS data. We had a unit that was hired here at CDSS to help with CANS completion and TA. And so we've posted those positions. So we need to do the development of the TA that they'll work on and then implement that. And then we're working on an appeals process for the IP CANS. Again, we can answer questions on this. I'm just going to go through for the sake of time. For the category of care and supervision, we need to publish guidance on the specific conditions in which AAP and KINGAP families can receive up to the tier 2 rate in AAP and KINGAP. And then we want to draft and publish guidance on some of the resources across the system of care for children and families in AAP and KINGAP. And then for the strengths building program, so that's the monthly access to those enrichment activities. That's going to run through a third-party vendor known as the financial management coordinator. So we need to select that financial management coordinator and execute a contract with them. So that's all ready to go by July 1 of 2027. And then everything below is just kind of a more detailed version of saying that there's some guidance that we need to publish as it pertains to the strengths building program. And then for the immediate needs program, we have a report to the legislature due on January 10 of 2026. So we need to publish that in a couple months here. Begin the certification process for high fidelity wraparound. There was some guidance published over the summer. I can also put that in the chat about the wraparound certification process. And then we have some joint guidance to publish and develop with our colleagues again at DHCS for the immediate needs program. All right. I just kind of zoomed through that quickly for the sake of time. And then I'll pass it back to Angie, and then I think we can open it up for questions.
Only if I can get myself off mute. Next slide. Is there another slide, Emily? Or is this you?
Nope, this is the last slide.
I guess I would just reiterate all of that work that Emily just covered very quickly actually requires so much work on the implementation side in order to make sure that we're using all of those tools that CANS is done to fidelity and the CFTs are done to fidelity, that we're actually engaging with young people differently in their child and family teams and starting with their strengths, really taking advantage of the opportunity of these strength building funds to support reunification and positive parenting and to bring the joy back into that relationship. I was at a convening recently where a young person was talking about her efforts to reunify with her parent and how there was just never any joy in the relationship. It was just all so much like checking boxes and being in scary rooms and like just not having the opportunity to just do things and be with that parent. And the strength building dollars really allow us to reimagine what it means to engage in reunification. The immediate needs program allows us to reimagine what it means to support a child within the context of family and to really robustly team with that relative in order to make sure that they have the supports and services that they need to do the caregiving that we know they do so successfully already from the data, but to increase that number even higher so that all of our kids who are placed with relatives, that's the only placement they ever experience, that they then return home and that they never encounter our system again. That's really the vision. And I think together we can bring that vision to fruition, but we're all going to need to be involved and engaged. It'll take dollars, it will take effort, it will take training and best practices and culture change. And we are really looking forward to partnering with all of you to do that work together.
Thank you so much, both of you. And Angie, it's a perfect way of setting the stage. So I'd like to open it up for questions. And Emily, if you want, you can probably pull down. Yeah, there you go, so people can see you better. Anna.
Hi, all. Sorry. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm so sick. Thank you, Angie and Emily. I had a question. I have a couple of questions, but so on the slide that you had, where you kind of had the vignette with the different levels of funding, right? So, and we know that statute indicates that FFAs and SDRTPs are the presumptive providers of those immediate needs services. But like, how can we assure that all FFA and SDRTPs that become like immediate needs certified or high fidelity RAP certified are able to then provide those or receive a county contract, like a necessary county contract? Because, like, for example, in LA County, we had this problem with the shift from high fidelity wraparound to like SDRTP aftercare to high fidelity wraparound, and how that was implemented meant that, like, if a provider didn't have a wraparound contract with LA County DMH, like, they weren't able to provide those services. And even for our providers who do have wrap contracts, or for those providers that do, like, how the ability to like follow, you know, kids with the same providers and have that sort of like transition is really difficult because of how the contracts are delineated between like SCRTP and aftercare. And our concern is that that will play
Right.
out in the same way with immediate need services.
So I'll say a couple things about that. One, it's very much in design right now. And so we are having active conversations this week with CDHDA, CWDA, and the California Alliance as we're sort of designing exactly how the immediate needs program is going to work. What I will say is it's really critically important and that the statute required the development of the high fidelity wrap bundle that DHCS is creating, and that we are building it in concert with the immediate needs program so that those two things are linked together. Because the high fidelity wrap bundle means that that will become a Medicaid benefit across all of California, available to all children that are within the Medicaid program, inclusive of all of our kids within tiers 2 and 3 and 3+. And then through the immediate needs program, there will be additional expectations and services that those high fidelity wrap providers will be able to do with specific child welfare competencies in order to make sure that our kids really get what they need within those 3 identified tiers. And so it means that there will be a network of immediate needs of high fidelity wrap providers being created across the entire state. And then hopefully a large subset of that network will also be WIN certified providers. To your point, you know, an FFA or an STRTP would have to meet those criteria in order to be a WIN certified provider and in order to be then the presumptive entity that provides those services. But again, when you sort of divorce the services from the actual placement, we would be able to meet the needs of kids within that FFA, even if that FFA were not a WIN provider, right? So like there's admin funding that would still flow to the FFA. There's also funding that would flow for the care and supervision. And it's possible that the WIN provider in that situation would be a different organization within the network that's meeting those needs. And it's a really important design element, is that we've always sort of forced the services through the placement, as opposed to like creating the network of services that are really going to be able to robustly meet the needs and meet the needs of all of our kids, and especially the kids that are within relative placements, right, who are usually not connected to an FFA, not connected to an STRTP, and we still want those kids to also have access to these services. And so a lot of the design elements that we're working with right now are making sure that we're going to have a robust network of high fidelity wrap providers that have these additional competencies, and that they'll be statewide, and that will be able to serve every single child through that program, regardless of where they're placed.
Thank you. We're coming up close to time. So Naomi, I see your hand is up. You'll be the last question out loud. If you guys have other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. so that we can email them out afterward. I also will put in the chat, our next meeting is going to be February 23rd. We're going to have Director Nichols here giving a State of the Union. And then if you have requests for other topics in addition, please feel free to put those in the chat or email us. So Naomi?
Hey, thanks, Michelle. I have a few questions, so I'll ask my first one and then we can go into the other ones if we have time. But my first one is for the requirements, with the requirements for certification for IM providers, does this mean that FFAs have to become Medi-Cal certified in order to do that?
So again, this is what we're in the middle of discussing, but yes, that's our intention, that the when providers would also be the like they would also have those high fidelity RAP competencies, and then they would be Medicaid certified.
Okay. And then my other two questions were on dual agency rates, because there's this issue where the FFA rate drops when ISFC families transition to dual agency rates. So we just wanted to know what kind of conversations you all are having on that. And based off of that, I have two questions. The first one is, will the dual agency rate still apply when the TRS goes into effect?
Yes, so thank you for that question. So there are some instances, I mean, it would apply if it's more, right? So if it wouldn't provide more support, then the young person could still be in the tiered rate structure, even though they would be eligible for the dual agency rate. So in general, I mean, people would get whichever one is higher, but they would still be served by the regional center, even if they were receiving funding under the tiered rate structure. So like a tier 3+ youth, that rate is going to be higher than the dual agency rate. And so then they would receive funding commensurate with tier 3+, but they would still have their regional center there to support whatever additional sort of services in the role that the regional center plays, right? So that wouldn't go away. But for youth that are in tiers 1 or 2, if the dual agency rate's higher, they would receive the care and supervision rate associated with the dual agency rate. Importantly, every single child would also be eligible for the immediate needs program and the strength building program. So like those portions of the tiered rate would attach to a child receiving the amount of care and supervision dollars associated with the dual agency rate. So that would flow to the caregiver, but then they would still have their strength building dollars like every other kid in foster care, and they would still have the immediate needs funding and supports if they're in tiers 2 or 3 or 3+. So that's also a really important component of the tiered rates. Like we've always kind of bundled everything together and treated it as like sort of this monolith, but like under the tiered rate structure, it's not bundled that way. So the strength building dollars are there for all kids. If you're in THP, NMD, if you have a dual agency rate, if you're receiving something different than the care and supervision rate associated with the tiered rate structure, the strength building program is still there and the young person still gets to benefit from those dollars, and also true with the immediate needs program. And if you think about it, I know a lot of you work with non-minor dependents from the perspective of the transitional housing program for non-minor dependents. That means that we're also going to be able to have immediate needs funding flowing to support kids in THP and MDs. Which also means that we can support youth in that setting in a different way and kind of reimagine how we can provide real transitional support in order to better ready that young person for independent living. So some of the conversation that we want to have in implementation is how to really change the nature of some of these programs that I think haven't served kids that are like traditionally within what we would now call tiers 2 or 3 or 3+, but would have increased tools in their toolbox and capabilities and funding in order to support that population of young people, and really make sure that they're receiving the kind of transitional services that are going to help them be successful in adulthood.
Thank you.
Okay.
We are at time, so we do have to stop there. I would definitely encourage people, feel free to send your questions and we can try to bundle them and send them to Angie and then send the responses back. Really, really appreciate this conversation and look forward to continuing it. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.